Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Bad Times, Good Stories podcast. My name is Joe Flanders, and I am just overwhelmed with joy to be here with you today. I hope you're having a great day. Things are going well for me. Had a nice 4th of July. Decided to watch the fireworks from the roof of my building with my girlfriend, and we didn't really get to see one big show. It just looked like all of Los Angeles was losing its mind. Every person who had their own fireworks was lighting them off, and it was a great time. So I hope you enjoyed your 4th of July. Hopefully you didn't blow off any fingers or do the old bottle rocket in the butt and have a burned butt. That just sounds awful. And to do something that dumb, I'd always try to avoid things where if someone asks what happened and my explanation is dumb, I try to just avoid it. So things like, I shoved a bottle rocket up my butt and then I burned myself. No real way to spin that into an accident that could have happened to anybody. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. Today on the show is comedian Martin Morrow, who's a really funny guy. He just moved here recently from Chicago, and he's performing regularly all over town. He, while living in Chicago, performed on the main stage at Second City, which, for you non-comedy nerds, Second City is sort of a mecca. It was where people like Mike Myers and Stephen Colbert and Chris Farley and Steve Carell and Tina Fey, a bunch of people got their start there. Bill Murray. So it's a pretty big deal, and he performed regularly on the main stage there. And then he didn't. Basically, Martin was a sexual deviant throughout his 20s, and he wasn't always, but some circumstances in his life led him to sort of a toxic mindset. And so we talk about how that led to a lot of dicey situations, some STD scares, a fair amount of cheating on his part in relationships. He was also cheated on, to be fair. And basically, the sum of his promiscuous lifestyle caught up to him 5 minutes before a show at Second City, and he had a complete and utter breakdown. And it was just a really fascinating conversation. There was some laughs. There's some hard topics, but I really appreciate Martin being so open and honest about that stuff. The good news is that he has really changed his life for the better, and I wish him nothing but continued success here in the LA comedy world. If you enjoyed today's podcast, let me know. Email me at badtimesgoodstoriespodcast@gmail.com. If you have a bad time that makes a great story, share it with me, and I may just read it on the air. As always, you can check out badtimesgoodstoriespod.com, where you can look at past episodes, check out our merch, and support me on Patreon so I can keep the show going. There's a link to my Patreon page on my website. One more time, that is badtimesgoodstoriespod.com. Now, without further ado, here is my conversation with Martin Morrow. Have there been any times where you've actually been called upon at your security guard job?
Once. There's like a dude who was asleep in the corner.
Yeah.
Like, because we have like a lot of like homeless people or heroin addicts and prostitutes in the area.
Sure.
So yeah, it's just like this homeless dude. I'm assuming he's homeless. Who was just like sitting in the corner, sleeping in the corner. And someone was like, "Hey, can you tell him to move?" Because like usually, I'm the only one there for the most part.
Right.
But in the morning, that's when people start coming in. So I guess someone was like, "This isn't a good look." So I had to tell the dude to say, "Hey man, you can't sleep here." He's like,
What was his response?
He just goes kind of like, he didn't really say anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't that coherent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he just grabbed all his stuff, and I was like, "You got everything?" I always try to be nice to him.
Sure.
Yeah. So you got everything? He's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, because they are people.
Yeah.
You know, like it's easy to sometimes be like, ugh. It's like, no, they just something went wrong somewhere along the way.
Yeah, it could happen to anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought like, oh, this could happen to me?
Yeah. Yeah, a couple times. First time was in Chicago when I lived there. There was I was just living in an apartment where, well, I didn't have any money, and my roommate was like, "Well, I think he was gonna move out to a different apartment," and I was like, "Shit, all right, well, what do I need to do?" And then, but I always I have a weird survival brain, so like when I was a kid, I would do this thing where, and my mom hated it, but I would pretend my legs didn't work.
Okay.
And would just climb up the stairs only using my arms, or would try to get around only using my arms, or
just in case
something happened where my legs were gone at the age of 12, in case I saw combat at 12. And then I would also do the same thing with my arms. Like if I didn't have arms, I would try to grab stuff with my toes, stuff like that.
So you were ready.
Yeah, I was always
you
ready.
Still are.
Yeah,
on the off chance.
Yeah.
Now you'll be really fucked if you lose your arms and legs because you haven't prepared for that one.
No, then I'd be done. Yeah, I'd just be a torso. I don't know if I'd want to live if that happened.
Yeah, that's tough if you've got the Christopher Reeve situation. I mean, well, I guess he couldn't move anything.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
right?
He was just in a chair. Yeah.
Do you remember that commercial that he was in? I think it was a Super Bowl commercial where they superimposed his head on a walking body.
Yeah.
It was all these things are possible in the future. I can't remember what it was for or something.
Like stem cell research?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he died 6 months later. So
yeah. So I guess it didn't work. Unless he got cloned.
Yeah.
Which would be crazy.
Yeah. They probably weren't, the campaign probably wasn't too happy about that.
Yeah. They were like, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad
we were going to think that if you turned into a robot, man, you die.
Yeah. Glad we spent that $10 million on that commercial.
Yeah.
Also, condolences to Christopher Reeve's family.
Yeah. Was that cup always shaped like that?
No. So this, unfortunately, I think was only supposed to be top shelf in the washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it in the bottom shelf.
Oh, wow.
And now it's a deformed cup.
I didn't even know that there was a difference in the top or bottom shelf. But I rarely have used dishwashers.
This is the first apartment I've had with a dishwasher since the house I grew up in. So I also didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And it's a cup from Pantages Theater, and my girlfriend was really happy to get it, and now it's kind of a sore subject.
Yeah.
So when she's listening to this episode, she'll remember how much she hates me.
Yeah. Ruined a gift.
Yeah. I also did the same thing to the other cup she got at Pantages, which was from Hamilton.
No way.
Yeah. And that one you can't get that one again.
Yeah.
So
well, you can. You can't?
I don't think so.
Because they're not doing it.
Because the show's gone. So
maybe they'll come back.
Maybe. Yeah. That's
but it's such a rare.
Yeah. I'll have to buy a ticket just so I can get the cup.
Yeah. Maybe you just be like, hey, can I just get this cup? I ruined the last one.
Yeah. Maybe they'd be nice about it.
They might be. You never know.
They could be.
I've been under this new thing of just well, if I ask, at least I tried.
That's true.
And if they say no or don't respond, then that's fine too.
Right. Yeah. It's all right, well, then the same thing happened that would have happened if I didn't ask.
Yeah. I sent an email to Rockstar Games yesterday.
Yeah?
Yeah, just hey, here's my reel. I don't know if you guys need any voiceover people or whatever, but just in case. I haven't heard anything back. They're probably like, who? No, why? We know celebrities. Why would we want you?
Right.
But
who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe the overworked intern who's reading that email will be like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
So when I emailed you about doing this show, I always ask guests for a couple stories, and then I choose one, and people only give me a 2-sentence synopsis because that's all I want because I don't want to know all the details.
Right.
But you blew me away. You had by far the best options available.
Yeah. I also didn't know we jumped right into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've been rolling.
Yeah, I see that now. I'm like, oh. Wasn't hey, guys, remember to support our sponsors.
I do all that stuff later.
Oh, that's
I'll intro you and do everything.
That's good. Yeah, I grew up kind of like a good boy, like a very sweet child, very Christian single parent household. my dad, he had bouts with like alcoholism and drug addiction and stuff like that. So that was like kind of our dynamic of he would be in and out of rehab and then would essentially like he'd get back out. Or sometimes he just disappeared because he was like on a drug binge or whatever for months on end. And then he would get out and would like go to a 12-step program and would like be very holier than thou. And then I'd be like, no, dude, you just were gone. You can't preach to me. You just were gone for drugs. Right. So like let's square it back a little bit,
Right.
So that was like a big dynamic in our relationship for years and years and years, and just like this cycle.
Did you, when you were younger, did you actually think like, oh, he's getting better? Like, was there a certain point where it was like, I don't believe you anymore?
Yeah, there were a lot of moments like that. So like, I think I was maybe 11 or 12, where we went to it was like a church outing at like a peewee football game.
Okay.
And somehow he got drunk. I don't know how. I didn't know they even had alcohol at a peewee football game.
So he was probably packing with, he had some bottle of something on him or something.
I wish I knew. I don't know how, to this day, I don't know how he got as drunk as he did at it was a peewee football game with a church, and somehow he got blasted. And my cousin was like, yo, Keith, you're drunk. He's like, no, I'm not. But he was like, clearly, like, oh, and cheering and like cheering for both teams. It was like crazy.
Yeah.
So then we got into the car, and because my grandmother came to pick us up, and so my dad wanted to drive. And he was like, no, you can't drive. And my cousin was like, you can't drive. And
you wanted to drive like all of you?
My cousin drove himself.
Okay.
But he was going to drive me and my grandmother.
Okay. Drunk.
Drunk. Okay. And we were both like, this is no, you can't.
Yeah.
But he was so like, no, I'm driving, because he wanted to prove that he wasn't drunk.
Right. So
he drove, and like it was kind of erratic, and I said, I want to go home. I want to talk to my mom. I want to call my mom.
Yeah.
And he got upset by this, and he threw the phone at me, and it hit me, and I started crying, and then I think that like triggered something for him to feel bad, and we got back to my grandmother's house, and he like got on his knees and he's crying, and because I wouldn't talk to him. Like my defense mechanism has always been, if someone hurts me, I just shut down.
Right.
I just don't say anything to him.
Yeah.
So then he's on his knees, he's crying, he's like begging me to forgive him and all this stuff, and then he told me to hit him in the face, and so I was like, no. He's like, no, hit me. So I started like wailing on him. I like busted my dad's lip and stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that was that was like just like this weird catalyst for the events of my life, and how I view a lot of things. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. So I just graduated from college at Auburn, and he missed. I was living in New York before that, and he was doing great. He was sober for a while, and we had like built like a strong relationship. And
was he still in Chicago while you were in New York?
No, so I'm from Alabama. So
I'm sorry. Yeah,
this is in Birmingham,
right?
And so while this happened, he relapsed essentially, because his big thing was like coke and crack and stuff like that. So he relapsed, and the day of my graduation, like I'd been hitting him up like hope to see you, blah blah blah, and my uncle, my dad's brother, said that morning my dad pulled up in his red car and like came in and asking them for money, and he said as soon as he saw him like that, he was like, he's not gonna make it. Yeah. So yeah, he missed my graduation. I kind of was like, all right, well I'm done with it. That was my my boiling point. I was like, you missed this important thing, and I don't want to deal with this anymore.
And this is something that was, a graduation is planned a year in advance at least. Like it's not like it was something you sprung on him last minute.
Yeah,
you know?
No, he knew.
Right.
And so so he wanted to meet with me the next week to like, I guess, patch things up, and I was like, no, I don't want to. And he was like, I'll buy you lunch. I'm like, all right, cool. So I meet him at this place downtown. I'm already kind of like sassy. I grew up with just like my mom, so like I have just sass just all over me. Shout out to Jack Knight, who very funny comic who said something similar to that on TV, or on Netflix rather. But anyways, so my dad, we go to this restaurant, and my dad orders, and he's like, "This is good. You should get this." I order, and then we get to like the checkout part, and he's like, "All right, son, pay her." And I was like, what?
Oh.
And he goes, yeah, he was like, pay Eric. And so, because my mom was like, yeah, he knew you had graduation money.
Yeah.
So he was going to ask you for money. And I was like, I'm not paying for it. I said, no, you told me you would take me out. He was like, quit playing, son, pay. I was like, I'm not, absolutely not. He's apologizing to the lady and stuff. I'm like, you set this up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even driven down here.
Right.
You not done that.
Right.
And so then he got mad, and then like I left, and he asked me for $20 for gas. I was like, no, I'm not giving you any money. And so I just drove off, and he had called me and like left me a message cussing me out and stuff because he had to like push his car off from the interstate, and so I just was like, all right, whatever. And then next thing I know, he was in the hospital because he had a heart attack. And so there was a hospital in Birmingham. I don't know if they still operate, but it's called Cooper Green Hospital. Okay. And it's basically like if you're poor, that's where you go. If you're homeless, that's where you go. Because they just didn't treat him. They didn't check, what was going on, but he had a heart attack and it was severe. And because they didn't treat him and because they didn't check in on it, he was like, I know something else is wrong. So he went to another hospital, and they were like, yeah, you had a bad heart attack. And they did open heart surgery, and we were like, oh, he's going to recover and he's going to quit drugs and all this stuff. And then it was actually June 28th, 4:44 a.m. He had passed away. And then I think I got the call around like 5 or 6. They're like, hey, something happened at the hospital. And I ran down there, and I saw my dad's lifeless body. And it was this thing of like, oh man, I'm 21. My dad is dead. I don't know how to function in a lot of ways because of a particular history with him and what I expected to happen. See, I think in my brain I was like, okay, he's gonna get through this, and or we'll get through our rough patches, then we'll be like buddy. Every dude is cool with his dad when he's like 30 or 40 and gets it a little bit more, right?
Right, because you can kind of just look at each other more as equals to a degree, and more of a friendship can happen when you get older.
Exactly. Yeah. And so having that gone just like warped my 21-year-old brain.
Yeah.
And my mom and stepdad lived in Atlanta at the time, so she was like driving back and forth. So I'm back in Birmingham. My grandparents are in debt. My dad just died. I think I bought like a BMW or something crazy like that. I hated it. I hated it so much.
That's a bummer right off the bat. You're just like, why did I buy this?
Well, because my mom said she always wanted a white BMW.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I'll buy this car and I'll give it to her, and then she'll have the white BMW she's always wanted. And then she was like, I don't fucking want this car. And I was like, oh great. So I just became like this sexual deviant, this like degenerate dude. I remember I interned at Ugly Betty the last season of it, and then before moving back to Birmingham, the one because it got canceled. And here's what sucks. Like the people I hate most in this world are the ones who are like, I live with no regrets, dude. I have no regrets in life. And my biggest regret, I had the option, and it's not. I wouldn't say biggest regret because I had a lot of fun there and I learned a lot. But I had the option of either interning at Ugly Betty or interning for MTV.
Okay.
And the girl from my school at Auburn who chose MTV, who got that, she's now like the head executive producer of casting or shows of Comedy Central. And I'm like, motherfucker, I could have been
right.
If I would have strived for that, I could have been somewhere on that plateau, and now I'm just like
sitting here talking to me in my kitchen.
Yeah, I'm wearing a shirt. Like I was driving here. The shirt is very small, and I didn't realize it was small. And I was like, well, now I gotta go now. I can't just take it off. I had to like Winnie the Pooh it while in the car. So I was like, this shirt's too small and it's making my stomach hot. So I had to just pull my tummy out and Winnie the Pooh it while driving. And I almost walked up here with it out too, but there's like a mom and her kid, and I was like, I can't do that. It's just
well, I can relate. I've been there. There's nothing more sad than like a favorite shirt that maybe you forgot you had or something for a couple months, and then you put it on. You're like, oh, this doesn't fit anymore. Oh no, that's happened with several shirts of mine. Yeah. So
a big boy.
So yeah, if only you'd chosen MTV, you'd have clothes that fit and
yeah, making choices.
Yeah.
For other people.
So that ended up. So you were an intern on the last season of Ugly Betty.
Yeah.
And did you know at the time Had they announced it was going to be the last season?
No.
Okay, because I would imagine if they had, then you wouldn't have taken it.
Yeah, they got put in the Friday Night Death slot.
Okay.
But so I think I got hired for them in the fall beforehand, and or I guess hired. Yeah, I can say hired. So then in January, I was in Las Vegas. I was doing this NAPT convention as an intern, and that's actually I met Donald Trump there, which was weird.
Wow.
Yeah, pre crisis.
Everything.
Yeah, pre everything Donald Trump. And someone was like, "Hey man, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" They're like, "Ugly Betty just got canceled." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then they were like, "Yeah, dude." So I had to so I found out all in Las Vegas that the show I was interning for got canceled. I was like, "All right, cool." All right, so I just finished out the season, and that was that.
And then moved back
to
home. Alabama.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so there was. I say all that to say there was one moment where, there was a friend of I grew into this deviancy, right? Of just and nothing too bad or gross or whatever, but just situations I shouldn't have put myself in.
Right.
And this was sort of the crux of it, the spark of it, because my dad passed away, and then there was my friend was dating this dude who was when you watch an anime and it's oh that character probably has a demon inside of him or something. Yeah, he's just too tall and has dark hair.
Something's not right there.
Yeah, something's not. Yeah. He was one of those dudes, and he was big into karate or some shit.
Okay,
which is weird.
Okay,
it was something that it wasn't karate, but it was something like karate that no one in Alabama should be into.
I just envisioned the bad guy from the first Karate Kid movie or something.
Yeah. Cobra Kai.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, apparently he's the good guy now in the YouTube series. I need to watch it.
Yeah, I saw a couple episodes. I was like,
all right.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. I feel like that show really excelled on low expectations.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not saying that as a backhanded compliment or anything, but I feel like everyone groaned when it first was announced.
Yeah.
And then everything I hear about it is this is great.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, actually, I enjoyed the first couple episodes.
So your friend is dating the villain from Cobra Kai.
Yeah, dating the villain from Cobra Kai. And they had been perusing Craigslist. They wanted to S&M somebody, right?
Okay.
They were like, "Oh, we're gonna do some BDSM stuff."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I want to see," And then somehow it went to I'll just be your fourth, and then I don't give a shit about my body anymore. I hated because a big part of it was at my dad's funeral at all these people who who I'd never met who were talking fondly about how my dad felt about me. Right. Now he loved me and cared about me and all this stuff. So I just felt like no one deserves my love and no one deserves my body. And so I shut down emotionally.
Yeah.
And it still manifested itself in a physical manner.
Right. Because you want to feel something, and if it's not going to be emotional, it's going to be physical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were going to have some weird S&M foursome. And I guess at some point the couple dropped out. But they're like, you can just have this girl's email address and you guys can contact each other or whatever.
Okay, so the couple being your friend and Cobra Kai, they dropped out. And so it's going to be you and a stranger.
Yes.
Okay.
Precisely. So I hit up this girl and sent her, I was like, oh, whatever. I was like, yeah, she mentioned you, blah, blah, blah. And she sent me her pic. She had these this pictorial that was professionally done. Someone from a rooftop took a picture of her just looking at herself naked. Oh. I was like, that's all right.
All right.
I was like, you're in it to win it.
Yeah.
And so fast forward to I went to her house and she was like, yeah, I used to play soccer and just moved here and then this part is terrible, but she said that she's like, yeah, I have a daughter, but I think her cousin couldn't have kids and the daughter was a product of rape. So she gave the daughter to her cousin who couldn't have kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe the best of a bad situation?
Yeah, I guess.
Perhaps.
It seems to work.
If the cousin was a good mom?
Yeah, it seemed like
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right.
Based off of the Snapchat, I assume. So she was like, "All right, well, you ready to have sex now?" And I was like, "Whoa!"
That was going to be my question because
Yeah.
as somebody who has fumbled and bumbled through sexual stuff his whole life,
Yeah.
I just have no idea how you go about small talk to, all right, you're going to tie me up?
Yeah,
Like, was it really just like that, basically?
pretty much. Yeah, and it was like, "All right," and so there's like all this. She had like all the stuff, like but we didn't really use any of it.
Okay.
We just had normal sex and as normal as it could be.
Right.
But at one, she mentioned that she was like, "I love anal," and I was all right, cool. And so we, were like trying anal,
Yeah.
but for lack of a better term, I didn't fit because I
Yeah.
guess there's anal is a process. I think you watch porn, you think like, oh, it just gets greased up because butts love dicks, and it's like that's not how it works at all.
No.
So instead, I stuck my finger in her butt and was just like circling it around and just like, all right, I guess this is good. I'm 21. I didn't fucking know anybody.
Yeah.
And I kept just doing that, and she seemed to enjoy it. I don't know if she was just like, oh yeah, whatever. She's just making noises, and I was like, all right, cool. But because I was essentially just sitting there circling my finger around in a butthole,
Yeah.
like I just started thinking, like my mind just wanders. I just start thinking about stuff, and so I was like, I used to intern at Ugly Betty. Like that was like the first thought that just was like I worked. I could have, if I was still in New York, and then my dad's dead, and there's like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought that all of my sex that I had previously was in the form of a relationship,
Right.
or like some sort of strong bond, or
Sure.
whatever. So I think she was my third partner, and so I was thinking like, oh, I guess we had sex, so I guess that means we need to like hang out or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we slept together like once or twice more, and then I invited her to like hang out. I was like, hey, I was going to go to the mall, and you want to come? And she was like, I don't even know you. I was like, yo, my finger was in your butt. What do you mean you don't know? It was such a weird, like you told me about your kid that's not your kid. Like it was. It fucked with me so much, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have fucked with me too.
Yeah.
Because generally it'd be the other way around. It's like you went to the mall once and then you're like, hey, want me to finger your butt?
Yeah.
And then she'd be like, I don't know you.
Yeah.
But the other way around, yeah, that would fuck with me too.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. So that like changed my perspective on the casualness of sex.
Right.
And so like the first, my very first STD scare, I turned 22 that summer, and I was doing a show in Birmingham, and there was a girl. This is before everyone had like half their head shaved.
Right.
So I was like, yo, this is a revolutionary right here.
She had that?
Yeah, she had that look and tattoos and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Invited me and this other comic back to her house. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I was like sitting on the couch, and I went to the bathroom, and her and the dude went to her bedroom, and I was like, oh, okay, they're getting it on. I'll just watch TV or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And then he comes out. He's like, hey, I got to go home to my wife. So I was like, okay. So he's like, yeah, I got to drive back. I was all right. So she came out and was like, oh, all over me. I was like, oh, all right. I guess it's fine. Because I think they like just touched each other or something, right? Or whatever. All right.
And then
whatever.
that guy probably was like, I'm married. I
Yeah.
shouldn't do that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So she like is enticing, come in my room, blah blah blah. Cool. And I'm like, well, let me just grab a condom because that's as a good boy, you're taught at least wear a condom all the time.
Right.
And she goes, if you're gonna put one of those on, don't even worry about it. I was like, oh, okay.
So then you're faced with the dilemma. It's like, well, do I have unprotected sex with somebody who 5 minutes ago had no interest in me and to the other guy?
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, I guess it's my turn. Okay.
Yeah.
So what'd you do?
I didn't wear a condom because I was 22 and stupid.
Sure.
All of my I'm turning 30 in a month.
Yeah.
And I'm just realizing like, oh, all of my 20s, I thought I knew everything. I was the dumbest motherfucker.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this will be okay. And we had sex. It was fine. I think we like did it again in the morning, and and then my friend the friend from the threesome. So her and her boyfriend broke up because he like went crazy and like held up. I think he actually held up the karate studio or something.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
all right.
Something fucking insane.
Yep. He swept the leg and killed somebody.
Yeah.
Well, no.
And so she called me. She was like, "Hey, did you leave with that girl?" And I was like, "Yeah. Why? What's up?" She goes, "You wore like, did you guys sleep together?" I was like, "Yeah, we did." And she was like, "Did you wear a condom?" I go, "No." She said it was okay. And my friend goes, "Oh, baby, no," like that.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I was like, why? What's up? She goes, "Yeah, she's just been around, and like some friends of mine said that she has a lot of STDs and stuff, so you really need to get like checked out."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh no." And so I called for whatever dumb, again, 22. I called the girl and was like, "Hey, hopefully you're having a good day. I don't mean to bother you or anything, but my friend said that you have like a lot of STDs, so I was just like, checking in to see if that's true."
Yeah.
And she starts crying over the phone. Yeah. And she goes, "No, I don't have any STDs. I don't know why people keep saying that. I have a kid." And I was like, "Oh, all right. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, can I didn't mean to upset you.
Have a good day."
Yeah. Well, I was like, how can I fix this? And she was like, "I like mint chocolate chip ice cream." I was like, okay. So I went back to her place and I brought her mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blah, blah, blah. And she starts like licking the ice cream off my finger. And I was like, "Oh, come on." And so then also my brain went to like, well, if you already have something, it doesn't matter now. You already got it.
Yeah. Double down.
Yeah. So we ended up sleeping together again on our couch, and then I left and then went to an STD clinic in Birmingham the next day.
Yeah.
And as I was there, the first person I see walking in is my mom's cousin who works there, and I didn't know she worked there. So I had to sneak past her, and then I took a number from the back, and they were playing. I remember they played this video, right, of like, "Here's how you avoid AIDS, guys," and whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And everyone in the video was black or Latino, as if they were just like, and I was so offended. I was like, "Are you fucking?" And then I looked around the room, and everyone there was black or Latino.
It's like,
yeah, except for there was one girl there, one white girl who looked like the dirtiest, like not even like in a figurative sense, but like looked dirty.
Sure.
Like, oh, she's whatever. She's just here to pick up medicine.
Right.
There's a prescription for her.
Yeah.
And so they call my number, and I go to the back, and for whatever reason, my doctor had on a full purple suit.
Okay.
With the hat, the whole nines, full purple suit, and get some, do the urine sample and the blood test and all that stuff.
Like a purple jumpsuit?
No, like a purple suit, like a 3-piece purple suit. Like a pimp or
no lab coat, just
no lab
suit.
coat, just a purple fucking suit.
The Joker and the 1989 Batman,
right? Yeah, it was. To this day, I don't know who this man was. I remember he had what is it, the mutton chop?
Yeah,
he had mutton chops and a full purple suit, 3-piece with a purple hat. He could have. It was hot too. He could have taken the hat off at the very least. At the very least.
It sounds like a pimp.
I think he was a pimp who just like was like, "Oh, I got this doctorate." So I guess like
wait for him to check out his ladies.
Yeah,
right.
So I had to get my results and everything, and I left them. There's two parts of the story.
Okay.
So I mentioned earlier meeting up with the girl from Craigslist.
Yes.
So that was early that summer. And I have had an issue with just, if I had to run to work, I would just leave stuff out in the open.
Yeah.
So we had an email exchange, like detailing like how we're going to meet up and what we're going to do and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was living with my mom at the time, and she called me. She was like, "Did you? What is this? Look, I know you're going through a lot with your dad and everything, blah blah blah." And I was like, "No, it was just a conversation. Nothing happened, So part 2 of that is I got the results that, like, I ended up not having any STDs, which is great. And I left but I left the lab results out on the bottom, like at the table of our living room. And my mom like called me again, like, is there something you need to tell me? I was like, no, I just was getting tested to just make sure I'm okay. And so that just became like this ongoing like thing. So then
by the way, sorry for the listener, we aren't in the apocalypse right now.
Yes.
There's just every sound in the world.
This is
we got
insane.
weed whacking, 2 different horns going off.
It almost
chaos.
feels like someone's trying to get me to not tell this story. Like, hey, this is God. Like, stop, dude. Quit now.
Anyway, sorry to mess with your flow there, but wanted to address that.
Yeah.
So you were saying.
Yeah. So yeah, that just became like an ongoing occurrence. But I say that, so fast forward, I moved to Chicago the next year, and sort of again with this like same sort of sexual perspective.
Right.
And
so you hadn't quite come out of it. You're still dealing with your dad and all that kind of stuff. And,
yeah. Because I just never, I just didn't properly grieve. And that's something my mom told me a few months ago, actually. So it was like, you never, like, you didn't grieve. You didn't like sit with the knowledge of it. You just sort of worked through it.
Did people try and talk to you about it and you just kind of shut down, or like what was?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, they'd say, oh, my condolences. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or I'd say, like, it happens. Like, because my philosophy became everyone's going to die, so why form a real connection?
Right.
Because they could go at any moment.
Right.
And also the thought of, like, I didn't give him the opportunity to connect with me in that manner, so why should I give it to anyone else? So I shut down forever. Like, I didn't even talk to my mom, like, the way, like, we used to be best friends, before. And then I just had this sort of this anger now that I didn't have before, but it just didn't manifest itself in a manner of like being necessarily like I hate the world, but just like I don't care, like I don't care how I treat people or like what happens or whatever. I just need to make money and be successful and live.
Just focus on you and not care about anything else, really.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Now,
I was still nice to people. But
well,
just,
sure, on a day-to-day basis, but you just weren't going to get attached to anybody.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So now you're living in Chicago. Did you move there to do comedy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my mentor in comedy recommended, he was like, you should go to Chicago. You can do Second City and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, cool. Because I'd heard of it, but I never really knew what it was. And I went and saw this show and was like just blown away by it and was like, yo, this is what I want to do that. Yeah. And so I worked my way sort of up the comedy ladder and stuff. And like, and then I moved back to Birmingham temporarily. So like I didn't start really dating in the comedy community until the end of 2011.
Okay.
And that was like, it was like a pick. I can either pick this girl who lives here or pick this girl who I met in Birmingham. Right. And I was like, oh, I'll move back to Birmingham and just see what happens.
Okay.
Because at that point I hadn't been in a relationship in like almost 2 years maybe. Mm-hmm. So I moved back to Birmingham essentially to date this girl who was like a blonde debutante. It was the exact opposite of me. Just wealthy family. Yeah. Like came from like a smaller town, all that stuff. And her parents were racist, so so it was like a lot of dealing with that. But now I'm stuck in Birmingham, right? Having to.
So you moved back to Birmingham for this girl.
Yeah.
How long had you been in Chicago at that point?
A little, like 11 months.
Okay, so almost a year.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, I'm going to see how it goes with this awesome girl who's nothing like me. Yeah. And you moved back. I assume you moved back without knowing that she had racist parents.
Yeah, I didn't know that before.
And she failed to mention it.
I don't think she knew either. I don't think she either. I don't think she like had that type of interaction beforehand.
Okay. Is this kind of the progressive racism in the sense that like they didn't have a problem in theory with people of color so long as they weren't dating their daughter? Maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember sort of, and I think it like crept out a lot more after we started dating, because the sort of the jump of it was, and this sort of like fed into where I became a cheater, was she so there was a friend of hers. I'll say his first name, named Robbie. And because you can like Robbie, I just always hated that name. And we go to this bar. She's like, I want you to meet my friend Robbie. Meet him. All right, cool. And then I like walked off, and he pulled her aside to get a drink. He goes, so you fucking black guys now, like that. And she was like, whoa, right? So she kept saying like, oh, Robbie's like a brother. It's fine. I'm like, no, like he said that. That's racist. That's mean.
Yes.
She's like, no, he didn't mean it like that. Like, he clearly did. He said it. There's no other way to mean it outside of saying it just like that. And so it got around to she had a formal for her sorority, and she invited me, and I was like, oh yeah, I'd be honored to go. You know, I've never been to a sorority formal.
Sure.
Great. And so she told her parents, I think the night before, and they're like, absolutely not. And she was like, why not? They're like, well, there's going to be pictures of you two, and they're going to be on Facebook, and then people in the town are going to see those pictures, and they're going to ask us questions, and we don't want to have to deal with that. So they told her to bring Robbie. My issue with that was like, Robbie has had sex with all of your friends. He's going to try to have sex with you.
Yes.
No, I was like, bring anybody but Robbie. She was
right.
like, no, it'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. And I've always been like a big snoop as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just don't trust the situation. And I stayed over with her the Monday after, I believe. And she left her phone on. And I went through the text messages of her and Robbie where they were like, yeah, that was crazy. We're like high schoolers all over each other, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, motherfucker. So I just left, right?
So they did sleep together.
They didn't sleep together.
Okay.
Apparently they made out and did like a lot of, touching up the skirt kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so then I saw a thread because she like logged into her Facebook on my phone.
Right.
And there was a thread with her and her best friend where she had said, yeah, I'm just going to date Martin until I get my confidence up. And I was just like, wow, I was like, so what's the point of,
what the fuck?
It's like, I moved back here.
Yeah.
And it sucked because like all my friends they had jobs, like different jobs or were married or whatever. So
right.
I couldn't like really interact with them the same way.
Right.
And I was just stuck in this relationship where, and so I ended up cheating on her with a girl I had previously dated. And I remember, so she was freaking out. So then we just were like always butting heads because we weren't honest with each other.
Right.
And it led to where she was like, well, if you break up with me, I'm going to kill myself. Like while I was like driving to a show.
The girl she said she was going to break up with you when she gets her confidence back.
She said it to a friend.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now, did you throw that in her face? Or did you not want her to know that you'd seen that? Or
yeah, I just didn't mention it. I didn't mention it until like later.
Oh, well, yeah, because then it becomes an ego thing where she's getting dumped.
Yeah,
she doesn't want to be the one getting dumped. She wants to be able to break up with you.
Yeah,
man, and this must have. And for you to have moved back to Alabama from Chicago, where presumably like you had a little bit of momentum with comedy and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I would imagine you're kind of starting to let your guard down a little bit and like have some emotion with a person again.
Yeah.
And then for that to be the first time that you kind of open that door and then to have her just slam it shut like on your hand.
Yeah.
That had to be especially painful.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that, and it's funny, I just told my therapist this part of the story I'm about to tell you and your podcast listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I did throw that in there. Like, and the people listening right now. But my therapist was like, whoa, why didn't you tell me that before? So there was one night, we did improv together. That was like a big crux of our relationship was like, we like improv.
Okay, so you met doing, okay,
Yeah.
I get it now. I was trying to figure that out. So
Yeah.
she was in Chicago too and was moving home and you just went with her?
I went the previous year, 2011, I went home to Birmingham for my birthday.
Yeah.
And met her while hanging out with like other people. And they're like, oh, this is the intern of our improv group. And I was like, oh, dude, cool. And I was like, oh, she's pretty and she likes improv. This, crazy.
Okay.
And yeah, so that was like our bond of sorts.
Right.
And she was just like this goofy girl. And so fast forward a year later, and we were in a relationship, but we hate each other.
Yeah.
And just like can't get out. And so we were doing this improv show at this theater, and there was a newscaster who was there, this news reporter for I think like the CBS affiliate. And I had asked her, I was like, hey, if you enjoy the show, you should like have us, I'm trying to like do some cross promotion. You should have us be on the news one morning maybe. Oh yeah, I'll give you my card. And so my girlfriend at the time she saw this and was like, how you're fucking flirting, you're embarrassing me. And I was like, no, it wasn't. I was like, I was trying to get the card, blah, blah, blah. So we all went up to this bar afterwards, and I was like, I was working 2 jobs at the time also. I was an accountant, and I was working at this radio station for the like sales and marketing department.
Okay.
So I did the accounting job, 6:45 to like 4 p.m., and then I would drive 45 minutes back to the city where I worked the radio. I think it was like from 5 to that day, like either 5 or 6 to like 7, and we had the show at 8.
Yeah.
So I was just like dead tired.
Yeah.
And so we go to this bar, we're all drinking and stuff, and I got wasted. And then we go to this other guy's house who's in the group, and I fell asleep on the couch. And so we get back to the car, she starts yelling at me, like, how dare you embarrass me? You're passing out at people's houses. And it blown up to that point.
Yeah.
So I just start crying,
Yeah.
but hard cry, like
Ooh.
a real man cry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you so mean to me? I'm so nice to you all the time. You're so mean to me. And I go, take me to my car. She goes, you're too drunk. You can't drive. I go, I don't care. I'd rather die than be in a car with you anymore. And next thing I know is it's the next morning, and I wake up, and I'm completely naked, and I have like tear streaks on my face still.
Where did you wake up?
It was in my bed.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. But, yeah.
Yeah, but she was there too, and she was like getting dressed, and she like won't. She's like acting weird towards me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's up? She goes, we had sex last night. And I go, I said, there's no way I could have consented to having sex. I was dead drunk.
Right.
And she was like, well, I found a way. Essentially saying, like, she for lack of a better term, she raped me. And I told a friend about it the next day who was in the improv group with us, and he was like, don't tell anyone that story. I said, because no one's going to believe you. I was like, all right. So I just didn't. I like held on to it.
Buried it down.
Because I was like, oh, yeah, no one's going to believe that a 23-year-old black dude got raped by a 21-year-old blonde debutante,
right?
Sorority girl.
No.
So I was like, there's nothing that I could say that would, whatever. So I was like, all right, and just sort of had to hold on to that. And so my therapist was like, yeah, you felt silenced. That's why you started acting out so selfishly and so in a sexual manner as well. I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So I moved back to Chicago that summer.
Okay.
And that's when I first got hired for a show at Second City.
Okay.
And everything was like very hunky dory for a while. But we were still dating, and then she like came.
You were still dating?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. But this was like I think being away made me realize like, oh, there's better.
Yeah.
I got her an internship up there, and her parents found out we were dating because they went through her. She went back home for the summer or whatever, and they like showed her her text messages, like they had printed them all out between us. Yeah, it was fucking insane. So they printed them all out, and they told her that if she didn't break up with me, because we had like broken up like 2 or 3 times. Anytime something like super racist or super crazy happened, I was like, I'm not dealing with this anymore.
Right.
And her parents said if she didn't break up with me, they were going to cut off her college funding.
Oof.
So yeah.
What were did you have any interactions with her parents?
Yeah, they had met me.
What did they? Were they polite to you, and then behind the scenes they were, their true selves came out?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, because I'm trying to figure out how those interactions could have gone. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So they threatened to cut off her funding.
Right. And so like she said we could just pretend to be broken up. I was like, no, like that. Then what?
Right.
So we were like sort of in a weird breakup, but not broken up, like middle ground or whatever. And I moved back to Chicago, doing the Second City thing, just like a smaller show. But it was like I needed something different.
Right.
And And my family really didn't want me to go because the accounting job paid a lot, and apparently they all got like a $180,000 payout because the company shut down or something recently. And I was
wow.
like, okay, yeah.
So if you had been there still, you would have gotten the...
Yeah, but I was,
okay.
I hate it.
Well, yeah,
it. Yeah,
of course.
it's miserable. So get back to Chicago, doing all that jazz, and got her an internship. So she came up, and then her parents, her parents came to visit at one point, and they came to my show that I was doing, and we had another black guy he's on SNL now, who's in the show. Her dad shows up late, and he walks in and he sits by me. He goes, "Which one is he?" He had met me like at least like 6 times, but like I was like, "Oh man, that's he can't even hold it down for a little bit."
Yeah, and that truly proves he doesn't even see you as a person.
Exactly,
he's just looking at color.
Yeah, or he would call me Tyrone and stuff like that too behind my back.
Christ.
So like the whole everything he could do. But and then when she told him like, "Hey, you're racist," he was like, "No, I can't be racist. I have a whole list of black people I know." That's what he said. So I was like, "All right, yeah." So we end things that September it was, and I just quickly I became like a serial monogamist in a way.
Yeah.
So I jumped into like a new relationship with a girl who worked at this theater. And then she wanted to date some other guys. So I was like, all right. So we break up. And then like the next day, I jumped into a relationship with a girl I met at a bar. And so we date for a year. But now I have like all of like this burden of I don't trust people.
Right.
And I don't want to let people too close. So I became like this perpetual bridge burner in terms of relationships. So like if we're breaking up, then I'm going to break it the fuck up.
Right.
So even with my ex, the one before who had the racist parents, when we broke up, and then she saw that I tweeted like, "This is the happiest I've been in a while," and so she saw that, and like we had this huge falling out, and then but I was like, it doesn't matter, I've moved on, you've moved on, whatever.
Yeah.
So then I get in another relationship, and it was like very quiet and calm and comfortable. She was like 8 years older than me. And this is sort of where like the real sexual awakening started to happen. Because she was 8 years older than me, she knew what she wanted. Right. So she was like, I'm into choking and I'm into Yeah. Now I'd never choked anyone before. Right. So I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. She's like, no, hard like real fucking grip. I was like, oh, okay. So I had to like learn how to do that.
Right. And that's got to be hard because it's going against every impulse that, a person has.
Yeah.
Who's not into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did she have a safe word?
No,
there was no safe word.
No, I don't even know if we ever got to that point. Like, okay. I remember there was one time where I don't know. I'm telling you, there was one time where we were like having sex, and then I couldn't like stay hard.
Right.
So I just started crying. So they were just like sitting there. I'm just like with my limp dick out, like crying, and like it's just.
Is there a sadder image than a man crying with his limp dick? I don't know. Particularly in a situation where there's no harm being done or anything. But
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
What did she say?
She just sat there and listened, and we just talked about like other stuff. I was like, I don't know, I'm just going through a lot.
Oh God.
And
did you start crying? Was that actually like an emotional breakdown moment, or were you doing that to take the pressure or take the attention away from the fact that you lost your erection?
I think it was like a little. I think one fed into the other.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was like, I can't maintain an erection. I think I was 24 at the time, and I was like, why can't I maintain an erection at 24? Isn't that good? And so it shot her confidence and all this stuff, and so we did it for a year, and it was still sort of the same thing of like, okay, this is whatever, but I would still. I would snoop occasionally, and so she had a list of all the people she had sex with, and it was like 34 or something like that.
Okay.
And I felt bad because I was like, oh, I'm not even like close to this.
Yeah.
and we would talk openly about like her other sexual occurrences, and I just paled in comparison. Like there was, I was like, oh, you used to have a dude who just show up and fucking like literally throat fuck you and then leave, and I'm like, I don't want to choke you.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And so it really was like a shot to my confidence.
Sure.
And then she had an email chain with a dude who she had also previously had sex with, who she like was just smitten with, and she said that she sex with me was like boring, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well there's nothing I can do for this person.
Right.
And so it was actually a year exactly. And I said, trying to make you happy has made me unhappy.
Right.
And we realized like we needed to break up, and we did. And we were crying, and she was a big smoker, so I was like, I'll smoke a cigarette with you. And first time smoking a cigarette, and had sex one more time, and then left the next morning. And I remember we both just broke down crying out, in the doors. And but that like opened me up to like, okay, then why does any of this matter? I should be having more sex. I have to catch up to her.
Right.
I have to prove to her that I can be good at sex, that people like having sex with me.
Right.
And so that's where one of the stories came in, where like, we broke up in November, between like November and January of the next year, I think I had sex with like 20 or 30 some odd people.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you caught up.
Yeah.
You caught up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a lot of like 2 girls in one night or whatever kind of thing.
Wow. So you got some game.
Yeah, I did. I don't have it anymore. Definitely, that's out the door. And so there was one girl who I was like sort of pining for, and she was like, if we're gonna date, then I want it to be a relationship.
Yeah.
And I was just coming off of like fucking the most.
Right.
And I was in this in between of like, all right, this girl really likes me. I like her too. I'm gonna try, but I know where my head is at.
Right.
And so it was just like a thing of, I did okay for the most part, but every now and then I would just like slip up. And then the biggest one was I went back home to do some shows, and there was a girl who I went to high school with. And we were always flirty in high school, but now it's like, oh, here's this opportunity to sleep with this girl you went to high school with.
Right.
And so we did, and again, stupidly didn't, something about not wearing condoms in Birmingham just ruined me. And I ended up getting chlamydia. Right? Yeah,
okay.
Which I call the cold of STDs.
Yeah.
So I got chlamydia, and I didn't know, and I went to, because you don't know, you're just like, oh, this feels weird. Why?
What is it? What does it feel like?
It feels like, that scene in Ghostbusters.
I like where this is going.
where like they throw up all over Stan Ray.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ew, this is gooey and gross, and like, you could tell he like hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
It was like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So just like a numbing pain, and you just want to keep peeing.
Okay.
Because it doesn't, everyone calls it a burning sensation. It doesn't really burn, but it's like, this feels annoying because I keep wanting to pee this bad out.
Yeah.
So that happened, and I got into a place where I was just like sending dick pics a bunch too, and not like, here's a dick, random person,
right?
But like, hey, yo, what's up? You want to send me some nudes? Cool. All right, do you want like my dick too? All right, well, here it is. And that was like just this exchange. So sure enough, I was using her computer to check my email, and I left it up, as I do.
The girlfriend?
The girlfriend,
okay,
yeah.
The current one, yeah.
And she went through some of my emails and saw like a bunch of naked pictures and stuff that girls had sent me. And so I got to her house. She was like, hey, we need to talk when you get her. I'm like, all right, cool. I get to her house, and she like is sitting at the computer and then dramatically turns it to just titties. And I was like, oh no.
God.
Yeah. So I had to like try to explain it. It was like, it's just like a thing. And I'm sorry. And she's like, no, I don't. But then the first thing she did was she called her friends over. And one of her friends was like, well, let's look at more of his stuff. So they just went through all of my pictures and all of my emails and saw like any like naked photo I'd received or sent or whatever from a certain time frame. And there's one girl, this was actually the same girl who I cheated on the racist parents girl with. When I went back home, I'd also cheated with her. And we had like a whole exchange of pictures and stuff.
Right.
So she sent her a message on Facebook like, you can have him since you guys can't be platonic and all this stuff. And I was like still trying to work. So I wanted the monogamy part of me was like, you can work this out. You can do this. And in this time frame, I'm still learning so much about my family life and stuff, right? So like my dad cheated on my mom when I was a baby with this lady who lived in our apartment complex, and my cousin's husband cheated on her. I guess at some point in their relationship, they had 2 kids and stuff, and they divorced. My grandfather on my dad's side cheated on my grandmother, and he ended up having like a family in Chicago out of wedlock. So it all like sort of circulates. So and my grandmother was the one who told me about that and like tried to explain it to me as I was a little kid of like, hey, yeah, because my cousin Jillian came to Birmingham, and I was like, she looks real different than me. I go, so how is trying to like do little kid math of like and my grandmother was like, oh yeah, she's your cousin, but she's like not my granddaughter, or not my granddaughter. And I was like, I don't get how that works. Because grandpas and grandmothers go together,
right?
And then they have
a pair,
And so it took me like later to realize like, oh shit, that's because he had like a whole other family I didn't know about. And so in my mind, it was normalized behavior to cheat,
right?
To try to find your own sense of joy or happiness or whatever, and like it's clearly a bad thing. You're hurting people, but I'd never had that because I think a little bit of it was learning that from my grandmother, and in such a like, this is okay. This is
like a casual way.
It was such a casual thing that I thought, okay, as long as this person doesn't find out and get hurt, then I'll be fine.
Right.
But then I'm watching people find out and get hurt.
Right.
And so, like, I was supposed to visit her in Florida for Christmas, and I drove like 10 hours down there, and then she says, oh, yeah, I don't want to see you. But I already driven down there, so I was like, all right, cool. And then just went back to, like, just fucking a bunch,
Yeah.
And it sucked, because she was one of the sweetest people I've ever met. And I hate that I did that to that person, right. that I sort of turned her in that manner. And so I was like, all right, maybe I should just be single again for a while. So I did that for several more months where I was just like a single dude and just like, still hooking up and sleeping around and doing that whole thing. And then got into another relationship. But like I got into like 3 relationships at one time, basically, on accident.
Okay.
It almost felt like, the sitcoms where the dude is like, oh shit, I got 2 dates in one restaurant.
Got to be bouncing back and forth.
I
remember a Boy Meets World episode.
Yeah. I was Boy Meets World. I was Boy Meets World in it. So there's one girl who I was dating from my. We did this like Second City like camp thing, for lack of a better term. Excuse me, this like intensive. There's one girl who I was like sleeping with and dating from that. And then there was another girl who had just gone through a breakup from a guy she was dating for 7 years. And so she was like, I want a relationship with you. And there was one girl who was like in an improv group with several friends of mine and was just super sweet and was just, and she was like, oh, let's try something out.
Yeah.
And again, I had just gotten out of another. I like started dating a coworker of mine, which is always bad. But she was real mean to me, and I realized like, oh, I think I'm just into people being mean to me.
Right.
But sort of the same thing of like, but I'm also still sleeping around because we didn't establish what we were. So started dating these 3 girls basically at one time, and then the girl I was in the camp with was like, oh, I'm also dating this guy. I was like, all right, cool. And then she was like, he wants a relationship. I was like, all right, I don't care.
Right.
And she was also like kind of a compulsive liar. So she told a mutual friend of ours, like, yeah, Martin just freaked out because I said I didn't want to date him, and so I sent her just a screenshot of me saying okay like that. Because why? I don't care. I'm busy as is.
Yeah. It's
Um,
probably a relief. Like,
yeah,
fine.
It was great. And so the one girl who got out of the relationship, my whole thing was like, I'm worried because you just got out of this thing. And I feel like I don't want you to jump into something new that you're not ready for. And we didn't even like. There was one night where I had a show. This is the real Boy Meets World moment. I had a show. I invited the really nice girl to the show, and also invited this girl to the show. And the girl who just gotten out of the thing was like, "Oh, I'm dog sitting," and I was like, "Oh, I'll walk with you," and left the really nice girl there. And I walked with her, and she like gave me a blowjob and all this stuff. And then I was like, "All right, gotta go." And then came back to the show, and the girl was like, "Wow, you're gone for a while." I was like, "Yeah, I had to walk a friend, whatever." And somehow she still like that was the one that stuck around.
Yeah.
And we formed like this bond in this relationship, but I was still like on my fuckboy stuff, and I was cheating throughout the relationship, but like trying my hardest not to.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like when you cheat, you try to find like little justifications as to why you're doing it, or like what makes it okay. Like my thing was like, Martin Luther King Jr. Without if he didn't cheat, then who knows where civil rights would be now?
Right.
You justify it in like real stupid fucking ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so that so like we were together for 2 years, and I had a friend who was in town. So I got hired I got hired at Second City. Like full, like for the main stage. I toured with him for a year, and yeah, it was just like this cool gig. It was like my dream job. It's what I moved to Chicago to do essentially, and I made it. And most people were real supportive, but like there are people who I've been a fuckboy for like the past 5 years, and like there are people who it gets around. Yeah. And so I was like just I grew paranoid because I was like, oh man, I wonder how this is gonna. If there's going to be backlash because of that. And there was like a little bit, but nothing too extraneous. So I got hired, and I like got like a side chick who worked at Second City. She was like a what do you call it? A server there and stuff. And she had been there for a few years, and it was just like, this is where the side chick is where I could have my like sort of raucous sex.
Right.
The stuff that had been taught over the past few years, and then my relationship is where I can have my relationship sex, my beautiful like I love you sex,
right? The connected sex.
Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm getting exactly what I need.
Yeah. I
get my monogamous side of my brain as well as my like deviant side of my brain, and I had a friend who was visiting me from Austin when the Cubs were in the World Series.
Okay,
it's Game 7. And we had a show that night, and my friend was supposed to meet me at a bar, and my girlfriend was with her friends watching the game, and we're texting back and forth and stuff. And so my friend from Austin, when she gets drunk, she just gets very like volatile for whatever reason, but not with me, but with other people.
Yeah.
So we meet at a bar, and she's like trying to fight everyone there. And the Cubs won the World Series, so every place is packed.
Oh yeah,
it was insanity everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere was crazy. And but she's also very, very pretty girl. So people were like, "Yo, are you like flirting with me or trying to fight me?" And so she was. It was such a weird thing. And I was like, "Yo, I got to get you out of here.
Yeah,
you're being bad." And
you're all kinds of a mess when you can't tell. Like, do you want this, or are you trying to beat this up? Like, what? It
was crazy. And the thing is, she would always tell me how she doesn't really sleep around, how she doesn't have sex, because she that just wasn't her MO. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. So so in that regard, I just never tried anything with her because I was like, oh, she's just not a sexual person, whatever.
Yeah.
So we take an Uber back to my place, and I was like changing clothes, and I look, and she's sitting on my bed masturbating, and I'm like, whoa. this is crazy. And she was like, I'm just so horny. I was like, all right, cool. So we ended up sleeping together.
Yeah.
And again, my dumb fucking
Oh, you did it again?
did it again where I didn't wear a condom. And and so here's where I got chlamydia again. And which is like, luckily that's the only thing.
Yeah, you've been lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate. And so, for whatever reason, I just forgot that happened, that we just slept together and stuff. And she, like, I shouldn't have. She peed my fucking bed. Like, that, I should have remembered it, because for that, at least, that she peed in my fucking bed, because I remember I was like, why is it wet? Oh my God, why does it smell like
this is definitely the deviant side of your brain getting some.
Yeah. Oh,
Nothing
yeah.
emotional about this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was just dirty, gross, and then pee sex. Yeah. So, I went to the doctor. I was like, fuck, dude, I remember these symptoms.
Yeah.
And it was chlamydia. And so I was afraid to tell my girlfriend. So because I was like, she's going to break up with me. And we had a trip planned. I was like, all right, I can't, I just won't have sex with her. It'll be fine. Just don't have sex with her.
Till it clears up.
Till it clears up.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctor, got it cleared up, and I just would do stuff to avoid her. Like, no, I'm tired. I got to go home. I got to work, blah, blah, blah. And then in the meantime, I hit up the side chick and was like, hey, did you happen to, like, have anything weird going on? Like, do you any STDs? Because she was also on Tinder and stuff. And I was like, okay, so if anyone gave me this, it was the girl who, we'd have this type of sex.
Right. Because you'd forgotten about your friend?
I'd forgotten about my friend.
Okay.
So she went to the doctor. Like, she was freaking out. She didn't have health insurance. She just lost her job. And here's this guy who she trusted as much as you can, knowing he has a girlfriend. Right. Yeah. And so she came out clean. And I was like, okay, well, I guess maybe it's fine. Because I had one test that came back positive and one test that came back negative.
Okay.
So it was like a very confusing thing.
Yeah.
Like, all right. So I was like, if she's clean, then I'm clean. We're good. And fast forward to May of last year. And I had a lot of other stuff that sort of been going on. Like the paranoia had like kind of built up a little bit more. And a friend of mine was like, you need to tell your girlfriend if you've done like any dirt shit you've done, you need to tell her.
Yeah.
So asked her to meet with me. We go to her place, and I like vaguely tell her that I had been cheating. And so she's like, I need a day to sort of think about this. I'm like, all right, cool. So I leave, come back the next day, and I open up a little bit more. I still didn't give all
everything,
the details.
Right.
And it broke her heart.
Yeah.
So I don't, it's not necessarily I don't deal with rejection well as much as like the idea of someone that was the person I grew closest with.
Right.
Like if there's anyone I would have married, it would have been her.
How long had you been together?
2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah. She met my mom. She was, I met her family.
Yeah.
And to know that I upset someone that much and that I hurt someone who like she gave it her all. And in my mind, I was like, okay, because I wanted to move in with, like, just move in together. And I was like, this will help me. This will cure me of whatever this is that makes me keep doing this.
Right, because you'll be going home to her every night, and there's just the temptation's going to be limited in theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, it was too much. I was like, that's more than fair. But then it started like to get out into the comedy community a little bit more and stuff. So in trying to sort of stifle what had been out there, I looked fucking crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. How so?
Just like, I don't even know how to like, some of it I probably can't even talk about really.
Okay.
So we'll just leave it at that. But I lost my mind a little bit.
Okay.
And I just didn't handle not being able to communicate well. Like that's really all I wanted was to be like, can we please sit down and talk about this? And we couldn't.
Yeah.
And that's on me because I I hurt somebody.
Right.
I
Yeah.
fucked
She
up.
didn't know you anything.
Yeah,
Obviously.
she didn't. Yeah, it would mean nothing. And so it led to where I was, still doing the main stage thing, and they're like, "Hey, there's some guy in an orange shirt who's like looking for you." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And then I'll tell you this part of the story. Again, sort of that still serial monogamous manner, I started dating another girl right after that. But it was her neighbor.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
And so I feel like there's a lot of conclusions you can go ahead and draw with that.
Yeah.
So I got filed a subpoena 5 minutes before showtime.
Oh.
And I was already like, literally that day, it was a Tuesday, I had been asking, or like the week, so we broke up May 18th, I believe it was that was the official date. Or no, when did Birmingham, May 20th? Somewhere like between, like in the second or third week of May. And I had, after that, I just like felt sick all the time. I just didn't feel good. And it would hurt more when I was at Second City, when I was at work. When I was on stage, I would have a headache. And so I just was drinking all the time. Like that was my method of like taking away that pain.
Yeah.
Either drinking or like, okay, well, I'll sleep with this server, or I have this girl who works at this bar that I'll wait till she's off. We'll sleep together, and that'll numb it or whatever.
Right.
So just drinking, eating shitty food, and sleeping around, and it just sort of became my new routine.
Yeah. I
had asked Second City, I was like, "Hey, I'm going through like something right now. Is it cool if I get some time off?" And they're like, "Okay, yeah, we'll think about it and let you know."
Yeah.
All right, cool. And I had a buddy in Tampa who's like, "You need to just come down here for like a weekend or whatever to clear your mind."
Right.
But yeah. So I just kept asking like, "Hey, when, like once every week, hey man, like when is good so I can like go ahead and get my ticket? How about these dates?" And I just wouldn't hear back. All right. But I knew like something is breaking inside of me.
Yeah.
And to where I'm physically not doing well.
Well, and it's got to be particularly, I mean, performing comedy as often as you are during this time too.
Yeah.
When you're going from such highs to lows, when you're performing, you're on and everything's a joke and you're laughing and having fun, and then you probably feel the lows even more like as soon as you come off stage.
Yeah.
So that kind of fucks with you too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Just because it's one thing if you're just at a job that's really shitty and mundane and boring, and you can just be in that mindset all the time of just fuck everything. But when you're going high to low, I don't know, that's gotta be hard.
Yeah, it was the worst feeling.
Yeah,
because it like I said, it manifested itself in a physical manner, right. And now I just don't trust anybody, and I don't like anybody, and like the one person I did like or could trust or put because she didn't trust me because I lied to her because I wasn't honest with her. It's like, yeah, now who am I supposed to give anything to or believe in, or who's going to believe in me more so?
Right. And as opposed to the situation where you're with your dad or the family in general, where somebody did something to you and you were reacting to that, now you have no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah.
So then you feel even worse because there's nobody else dependent on. It's not like, oh, I'm this way because of my dad or, like whatever. It's like, I did this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
And so I went to the doctor that Tuesday, and I was like, yo, like, why do I keep feeling sick at work? And my heart rate had lowered, and I was extremely dehydrated, and like something else was like fucked up. And they're like, yeah, you need to take some time off of work. And I was like, this is my out.
Right.
Thank you, body. Yes. Thank you for failing. Because and so I go in that night. I was like, I'll do the show. I have my doctor's note say, hey, I can't come in the rest of the week.
Yeah.
I'll do this show tonight, do that. And then the subpoena comes, and just all of this, the catalyst of the physical stuff, the paranoia, the breakup, not like I gained weight, the drinking, everything, it just hit at one time. And I ran to the bathroom and I threw up.
Yeah.
Right. And then I run back out and I had to correction. I ran to the bathroom. I read over everything. I rush out. I had to throw up. I try to go back to the bathroom, but someone's in there. And I remember hitting the door, and then I run back, and I throw up in this trash can. Just this orange vomit.
Oh.
It just keeps flowing. And then I just broke down crying.
Yeah.
And just, again, that hard cry of like, I have nothing. I have nothing now.
And this is 5 minutes before show?
5 minutes before showtime. Oh, my God. So they're like, let's get you a cab. We'll get an understudy in. And because I was a mess.
Yeah.
And I've always like been able to go, like the night that my dad died, I went on stage and did stand up.
Mm-hmm.
When there was one time on a tour show with Second City where I got found out as we were like huddling up. I got a call from my uncle that my grandmother had passed away, and I cried. And then I went on, did the show, and would go back and back and forth. But this was the one time I was like, I can't.
Yeah,
I just can't.
Everything came crashing down.
Everything came crashing down.
You can't go on stage and be the clown.
Yeah,
yeah, you just couldn't.
And so I flew home to Birmingham. And I stayed there for a few days, and then was like, I need to just move. Like, I don't think there's anything left for me here.
Yeah.
And, talked to Second City and stuff, and we just sort of came to an agreement. And so I, handled everything, and everything, sort of ended okay, right? There's no, there was no, court.
That was one bridge you didn't burn.
Yeah.
Second City. Oh, and you meant the court stuff?
In the court stuff, yeah. It all, I don't want to say it didn't work out in the end. I had a fucking nervous breakdown.
Right.
And we had to leave,
for clarity, if you're able to say, was it a restraining order? Is that where you were with?
Yeah, TRO, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But it got dropped.
Yeah.
So it worked out in that regard.
Yeah.
And again, there's just some stuff I just can't talk about yet, which is, yeah. But yeah, it was, so I moved to LA and was just now it was the crux of all of the craziness that had happened, and all those feelings and emotions and stuff, and just still not trusting anybody and not liking anybody. And I ended up being suicidal in October through January, I believe it was.
Okay.
And then eventually saw a psychiatrist.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd already gotten a therapist, and was sort of able to open up to her about everything, about the breakups and the cheating and the way it spurned itself into someone at one point made a Twitter account we're rejoicing because Martin's leaving Chicago, and I was like, are you fucking serious? So I just didn't I thought that everyone was against me,
right?
And so I was on Lexapro at first, because right before I left Chicago, it's funny, I was supposed to have this evaluation, a mental evaluation, but I was like, I'm feeling good, I'm drinking and fucking, I'll be fine.
Oh God.
And it's I just skipped out on this appointment.
Yeah. And
it was stupid of me. I should have done it. And so I didn't do it till a while later, and I got prescribed Lexapro, and then I went back. And then I finally was I need to go to a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And I did that a few months ago.
That's great.
And told me I have PTSD, anxiety, and severe depression. And so I'm on Zoloft now.
Okay.
But I think also the real thing was learning accountability, learning forgiveness, learning patience, and learning humility in a lot of ways. And so I've for all of the asses I've eaten, and the threesomes, and the twice having sex, and the choking and all that shit, and the cheating and all that, I've been celibate since September. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming that's what you want.
Yeah. I think it's made me appreciate people more. It's made me appreciate sex more. It's made me appreciate love and relationships, and just my past, the good and the bad.
Right.
To look back and be like, man, you fucked up some good stuff. It's well, maybe I wasn't in the place to be good then.
Right.
And I it's not for me to say if I am now, but I know that I know that this is what I need for now, and it has been beneficial and it's been helpful in a lot of ways because I think I'm more focused on goals and more focused on trying to be a better person, be a kind person. I think beforehand, because like I said, my mom said she felt I didn't really deal with my dad's death. I just didn't take the time. And so it was weird that, some 7, 8 years later, I was finally like, oh, I'm settling into the fact that my dad is gone. And also all this other stuff that has happened to me.
Right.
Because I'm having to deal with it. I'm having to talk about it because I don't have a show to run to. Or I don't have to...
You don't have the distractions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I cut out everything at one point. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't... I didn't really smoke pot a lot, but I, wasn't smoking pot. I didn't masturbate for 140 days. Which,
that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was celibate. So so it was the first time, and I wasn't doing stand-up, wasn't doing improv, any of that stuff. Cut everything. So for the first time, I had to deal with me. I had to deal with rejection. I had to deal with how I felt. And at first, as I mentioned, I was suicidal I would just stay in bed all day. And then my mom was like, you need to get your confidence back. You need to get up and go out and do something. And so that became the thing of all right, I need to talk. I need to do something. I need to say something. I need to write. Anything.
Express yourself.
Express myself.
Get something out.
Yeah. And so I was writing poetry for a little bit.
Sure.
And then scripts, screenplays, pitches, everything.
Yeah.
Because it was, I needed that artistic outlet, but also I started meditating and, again, taking Zoloft and just all this stuff that I needed to improve myself.
Yeah.
And that, so that's how everything sort of ties up.
And that's where you're at now, huh?
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember I was lamenting to, ironically, my friend who gave me chlamydia, my last one, and she had said I was complaining this year sucked, I had a bad year, all this bad stuff happened to me, blah blah blah, just sort of being a whiny bitch, being a little whiny bitch boy, and she said you didn't have a bad year, you had a year of growth, and that that explained, that wrapped it all up, Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congrats on a year of growth.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's. And I think it's great because when you choosing to go celibate, it's like any interaction you're having with a person, you're just able to be in the moment. You're not thinking about them, as a sexual object or anything like that.
Yeah.
I would imagine that that's helpful.
Yeah, it's way different because there was that old part of me that was like, all right, is this person talking to me because, I can get something from them or I can sleep with them or, what are we here for?
Yeah.
And sort of reconstructing that part of my brain of I'll get to know you. Or if I've gone, I think I've been on 2 dates since, right? And in both instances, I'd be like, if they've said, I want to see a spark. I'm like, that's fine. We can be friends.
Yeah.
Me saying that.
Yeah. And actually meaning it.
Meaning it.
Just
I just want friends now. I don't care about taking that part out of the equation. I think in some regards, because my therapist is like, it's your energy. That's why people aren't trying to fuck you anymore. Yeah. Because you don't have your energy doesn't exude sex as it used to. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, cool. But also not cool, but cool, cause you still hurt you're like, nobody wants to fuck me.
Right.
At least try a little bit, pretend. But
you've just gone from one extreme to the other, and then I'm sure eventually you'll get to an even point, where it's just I think that I'm really glad that you were open to talking about all this stuff because I think it's easy for people who have never cheated. And to a degree myself, because I have not, but I think it's
fucking do. No, I'm joking.
And to be very clear, I've not had many opportunities to. It's not like I'm being tested every day and I have to go, oh no, But it's just I think this conversation really humanizes the fact that a lot of people who have fallen into this, they're not happy. They're not. It's not I think that we've humanized what that experience can really be like.
Yeah.
And it's not just they're an asshole because they're cheating on somebody. It's they think they're an asshole too, probably.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And it was a thing of like I just felt I needed to feel something.
Right.
And I thought that just it wasn't enough to be in a happy relationship. I needed like it was like validation. It's why the comedian can't just do one show. He has to go and run out and do another. Like you would think, oh, this one show where people laughed at you and thought you were funny and liked you, that should be enough. It's like no, I got to keep chasing that feeling.
Right.
And it was that. It was like, oh, I need someone to say your body is enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
Your energy is enough for me. Your sexualness is enough for me. Who you are is enough for me in this moment, in this night.
Right.
And needing it from someone who didn't say they would love me unconditionally, or who didn't have themselves involved with me, or have like my clothes at their place or whatever.
Right.
Someone who shouldn't give a fuck about me.
Right.
Yeah.
Who's not just going to say something because you're in a relationship and they're being polite. Like you wanted that from somebody, a stranger.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, you're great.
Yeah.
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 Martin, you're great.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I just came. Oh.
I think we're good. Do you feel good?
Yeah, I think this is the first time I think I've talked about a lot of this stuff. So,
Well, I really appreciate you opening up about it.
Yeah.
And
hopefully, and there's a few people who I've like made amends with and stuff, and I did like a 12-step program, like a thing, like a lot of different things. But I hope that one day that there's a lot of healing that's able to go around from this.
Well, I hope so too.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. That was the episode. Thank you so much to Martin for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I did. Like I said, it really sort of opened my mind up to what's going through the head of somebody who is cheating. Not everybody, of course, but again, not a good thing to do, but it definitely humanized the experience, at least in Martin's case, for me. You can follow Martin on Instagram at Martin M. Morrow. That is Morrow. Martin M. Morrow. And he posts all the information about his shows and where he'll be. He's going to be playing in Tampa in November. And he also has a podcast called the Untitled Black Dudes Podcast, where they talk everything pop culture. And again, that's called the Untitled Black Dudes Podcast. So check that out. Just a friendly reminder, check out badtimesgoodstoriespod.com for past episodes, merch, and to support me on Patreon. Thank you to all of you who are currently supporting the show. I really, 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 really appreciate it. That's all I've got for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next Wednesday, keep laughing.